Now, Sushma Swaraj, India's former foreign minister, was admitted to the AIIMS hospital in a critical condition on Tuesday evening. She was rushed to the hospital at about 9 p.m. Now, she had served as India's external affairs minister during the 2014 till 2019 term. That was the first term of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. She also had served as a minister under the former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee as well. Now, this is, of course, a huge loss considering the manner in which Sushma Swaraj had in many ways redefined as to what the foreign ministry actually meant. And many people had stated that she was a foreign minister who was just a tweet away, if ever, any Indian, no matter where he or she was stranded across the world. And for more on this, we are joined in by Mr. Sushant Sareen, who is a political analyst. I'm also joined in by my colleagues Siddhant Sibil, who's presently at the BJP headquarters, and Nagain Singh, who's joining us, we believe, from Sushma Swaraj's residence. So, Nagain, let me begin by asking you this. We saw a number of different political leaders from across the spectrum who, in fact, came there to pay the last respects for Sushma Swaraj. We are given to understand that Sushma Swaraj will be shifted to the BJP headquarters in some time. So, give us a sense of what's happening there at Sushma Swaraj's residence at this point of time.
Yes, indeed, Saleh. Almost every big leader, they arrived here. Either it's Sonia Gandhi, Rahul Gandhi, Narendra Modi, Venkaiah Naidu. Everybody came to pay their last respect to her over here. And right now, what you can see over here, that behind me, there is a vehicle which is ready, and the mortal remains of Sushma Swaraj, that will be taken to BJP headquarters, and there also it will be kept for around 2 to 2.5 hours, and all the other politicians and the party workers will arrive there to pay their last respect, and then the body will be moved to the cremation ground in Lodhi Road. And this is this is the information that we have from here. Well, when we talk about all the politicians who have arrived, L.K. Advani, he got very emotional and he almost broke down while meeting Mr. Swaraj, and Sushma Swaraj's daughter Basuri as well, and the same was with Mr. Modi. So this all talks about the personal contact and the personal attachment that she had with all these leaders and the politicians. And it is not just about those who are with BJP, but also all the leaders who are from different parties. They all arrived here. Mr. Ashwani Kumar also came here, who worked with her closely. So everybody has a personal story to tell about her, because she helped them at some instance of time in their life. So this is something what she had gained, and that is the reason that we see that almost similar to what we saw during Atal Bihari Vajpayee's time. In the same manner, many politicians arrived, and many people from the cadre from BJP have also arrived to pay homage and pay their last respect to her.
Absolutely, indeed. Now, they do continue to stay on with us. Meanwhile, let's get my colleague Siddhant Sibil. Siddhant, you are at the BJP headquarters. Now, Sushma Swaraj was such a towering presence in the BJP right through the 90s and even in the first decade of the 21st century, and even when she was the foreign minister of India. Give us a sense of how big a loss this is for the BJP itself, because she's seen the party at its lowest and also guarded it till the time it was in power, and has now become the party of preeminence in India.
Well, Mohammed, it's a huge loss for the BJP party, and of course we know that the role she played in BJP, she was the big connecting link between the Vajpayee era and the Narendra Modi era of BJP, and one of the initial leaders, I must say, of the BJP party, because the party just it started from 1980s, though its origin lay in Jan Sangh, and she played a crucial role back then, and also in the first tenure of the Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government from 2014 to 2019 as the foreign minister, as the external affairs minister, and shaped the foreign policy of India for perhaps next decade or so. She made sure that people become the center of this ministry, a ministry which is usually focusing on geopolitics, and digital diplomacy was something that has now become part of India's foreign policy, which is being carried on by the new foreign minister S. Jaishankar. But I'm right now standing at the ruling BJP's headquarters, where the mortal remains of Sushma Swaraj will be brought in some time from now and will be kept till 3 p.m. We do expect a lot of other ministers to come. Already we have seen where Nagain is standing. Ministers have come, paid their homage, including envoys, the President of India, the Prime Minister of India, the Vice President of India. But a lot of BJP workers have already arrived here and entered this building behind me.
Absolutely, indeed, Siddhant. Do continue to stay on with us. Meanwhile, we also have Mr. Sushant Sarin, who's joining us on this broadcast. Mr. Sarin, let me begin by asking you this. Sushma Swaraj, during her tenure as the Foreign Minister of India, redefined what the Foreign Ministry meant, because she brought the Foreign Ministry and made it more accessible to the common people, because no matter where an Indian national was stranded in any part of the world, she ensured that the Foreign Ministry was there to help him or her out.
Well, in many ways, that was her seminal contribution to what Indian foreign policy is all about. She wasn't so much into, these large strategic things and stuff like that. I think what she did was completely change the complexion of the Foreign Office, which, the Ministry of External Affairs was seen as something which was in some rarefied atmosphere. Hardly anybody had access to it. Even ordinary things were normally, people were overawed. We had so many cases of people, hanging out outside Indian missions abroad, and not being given the kind of importance they need to be given, or the Indian missions not doing what most Western missions often do. Whenever they find their citizens in some trouble, the first point of call is their embassies. But Indian embassies were kind of insulated, isolated on that count. She completely changed that. And I think that is something which will be her legacy for all times to come. How she changed, the connection between the Ministry of External Affairs, Indian missions abroad, and the citizens of India. But again, we went a little overboard in that also, because even people of Indian origin who were citizens of some other state won't interfere in their cases as well. There have been cases where citizens of Indian origin living in some other place, suffering from a natural calamity, and they didn't expect their adopted country to come and rescue them. They would reach out to Sushma Swaraj to come and rescue them. So it had also become a little bizarre in some cases. But by and large, I think this was her seminal contribution to Indian foreign policy for all times to come.
Absolutely. And, I want you to also weigh in on the fact that at the time that she was the foreign minister, Prime Minister Narendra Modi was himself taking a lot of active interest in India's foreign policy. So a lot of people thought that her role could be eclipsed. But the manner in which Sushma Swaraj redefined what the foreign ministry could in fact do, be it in cases where she brought back in some of these nurses who were struck in Iraq during the war there, or the case of Hamid Ansari, the Indian national who was in Pakistan, and she took an active interest to get him back. On the case of Kulbhushan Jadhav, where she pursued the legal case to its logical conclusion, and this was something that was taken up at her behest. Now, all of these things, set Sushma Swaraj apart, and this is going to be her defining legacy.
Yeah, look, and you are talking about all the big cases which actually made the headlines. There were hundreds of other cases which never made the headlines, and ordinary things. Somebody's passport is stuck, somebody's passport is lost. Some people also try to misuse it. And very often, if anybody was following Mrs. Swaraj on Twitter, she would, really give it back. She was nobody's fool,
Absolutely.
But there were instances where people would misrepresent, would tell lies to try and get money out of, the government. Because in some bona fide cases, she even asked the missions to give financial assistance. People thought that, okay, fine, lottery khul gayi hai. So what they started doing is that they started going for treatment abroad and then telling the government that, look, they had no money. Now, they should have thought about it before they went. So those kind of things aside, I think, and you know, the other great thing was that for all this propaganda that this is a Hindu nationalist government, rabidly right-wing, fascist, all of that, you know, there was no citizen of India who was denied his due simply because he did not belong to the right religion. So you had the case of that girl who had got married you know, in Pakistan, how Sushma Swaraj asked the embassy, the Indian High Commission to intervene and rescue her. There were any number of cases where non-Hindus, the government went out of its way to, you know, pull them out. So, you know, that is what a secular state, that is what a secular country is all about, that you do not give services of government based on the religion of people.
All right.
And I think Sushma Swaraj you know, she was emblematic of what the principles of secularism are, and I think everybody needs to really thank her for bringing this new dimension to what foreign policy is all about. Ultimately, look, Saleh, foreign policy is about not just protecting countries' national interests, but also protecting the interests of Indian citizens, also giving them the due protection. And that was a dimension which was very often ignored. She brought that back as a kind of a central pillar of what Indian foreign policy is.
Absolutely, indeed. We'll have to leave it there, Sushant Sareen. Thank you very much indeed for joining us in this broadcast, and also thanks to my colleagues Nagain Singh and Siddhant Sibal, who joined on this broadcast a little while back. So this, of course, is in many ways an end of an era. One of the tallest politicians of our contemporary times, Sushma Swaraj, is no more.